So today we will be learning the difference between latent and observed variables in structural equation modeling. Okay, we shall be differentiating between the latent and observed variables in SEM. So let us look at the differences first. So the first thing that we should note about the difference is that the latent variables are inferred or they are developed from the the latent variables are inferred or they are developed from the observed variables. That means that from the observed variables, then we develop the latent variables, while the observed variables are directly measured. The observed variables are directly measured. That is a major difference between the two. We know that the latent variables are developed or they are inferred from the observed variables, where the observed variables themselves, they can be measured, they can be observed. That's why they are called actually observed variables, because you can be able to observe them. So if we continue, let us look at the latent variables. We are seeing that these are unobserved variables that represents the variance shared among the tasks. They cannot be observed. That's why they are developed from the observed variables. But when you come to the observed variables, these are directly measured. They can actually be observed. They can be counted. For instance, if you're answering a questionnaire, that particular question is an observed variable. So if we have a questionnaire with 5 questions, these questions are actually observed variables. Then when you combine them together, then you can develop latent variables from them. So let us look at an example. For instance, in a questionnaire, we have latent variables here, then we have observed variables on the other side. So if we can have latent variables which measures health performance, but you cannot be able to measure health performance. So to measure these latent variables, we use the observed variables. So we have 4 observed variables. The first observed variable is life expectancy. Life expectancy can be measured, it can be observed. By what? By the average life expectant at birth. Maybe the average life expectant is 50 years, 60 years. So that one can be observed. Another observed variable that is measuring health performance is infant mortality, the number of infant deaths per 1,000 life births. You see, so that one can be measured, so it becomes an observed variable. Another one that can also another observed variables is the health access. Another one is physical activity level, percentage of individual meeting recommended physical activity guidelines. So you see now, for observed variables, you can be able to measure them. When you combine them together, the life expectancy, infant mortality rate, healthcare access, and physical activity level, when you combine these observed variables, then you can be able to tell the health performance. Now the health performance is a latent variable. Another example is an education performance. Education performance is a latent variable. This latent variable is measured by 4 observed variables. The first one is literacy rate. You can be able to measure literacy rate based on the percentage of people aged 15 and above who can read and write. Maybe the percentage is 20%, 40%. So you can be able to tell the percentage of the literacy rate. So that one is an observed variable. And that one is school enrollment rate. You can be able to tell the standardized test scores, the graduation rate. So this one, you can be able to measure them. When you measure this one, they becomes observed variables because they can be measured. When you combine the 4 of them, now you can be able to tell the education performance, which is now our latent variable. So let us look how we represent an illustration to tell the difference between the latent and observed variables. So when you are constructing a SEM model, structural equation model, so this one here, this one VR is a latent variable. Let's see, in this case, it can be education performance, it can be health performance. So these are our latent variable there. Then This latent variable is measured by 5 observed variables. 5 observed variables. In our case, in our example here, our health performance latent variables being measured by four observed variables: life expectancy, infant mortality rate, health access, physical activity level. So in this illustration here, this latent variable is measured by 5 observed variables: VR1, VR2, VR3, VR4, VR4, and then VR5. And then when you are developing this model, we always put errors, so they can be errors. These are errors. You can see each observed variables has its own error. So that is actually the difference between the latent variables and observed variables when you are constructing SEM. So make sure you watch the next video, which I will illustrate how do you draw them in AMOS. How do you draw the latent variables and observed variables, and also the errors in structural equation modeling when you are using AMOS software. So make sure to check that video. Thank you.